Hello everyone, and thanks for watching today's video. Today I want to talk about the functionality in Unifield for if you need to create a new stock location or you need to create a new client location, which we call an external consumption unit in Unifield, or perhaps you need to deactivate or stop using a client or a stock location. And this can happen for several reasons, when you need a new client, a new stock location, or to deactivate one. This often can happen with a change in strategy or a response to a short-term activity like an emergency or an outreach program. So in Unifield, we try to keep the locations and our clients aligned with the operations and activities in the mission, so that it's easy for you to encode and also to track the data based on the different activities. So the first thing I want to show you is how to see the overview of what you have configured in your Unifield, so your clients and your stock locations. So for that, you want to start in the warehouse, and you'll notice that I'm in Bangladesh 101. So this is going to be the coordination configuration. You can do the same steps in the Bangladesh 112 UKIA database, and you'll see the overview of the configuration you have in your database. So after I go to the warehouse, I go to the left and I go to inventory management. And then finally I choose location structure. Now this is just to give me an overview of how my database is configured for my stock locations and my clients. You don't actually do any encoding or creation here. This is just for information purposes. So the first thing I'm going to do is click Expand All. And what that does is it opens up all the categories and shows the subcategories. And what I can see here is that the stock locations, I have med and log. And we know in coordination, med is the Medical Central Warehouse in Cox's Bazar. And log we are not using, because for coordination we have an intermediate stock location called IPC log stock. And the difference between a default stock location and the configurable or intermediate stock locations is that these locations here, the intermediate location, is specific to the Bangladesh mission. So if you create additional locations to manage your stock, then it will appear down here as an intermediate stock. The med and the log stock locations, those are default to Unifield. Every mission that uses Unifield has med and log pre-configured. And each mission decides how they want to use med and log. Like I said, for Bangladesh, you use med for your central medical warehouse, and we choose not to use the log location currently because the decision was taken to create a specific log stock location for the IPC log. And so that is only in Bangladesh. Another mission would not have IPC log. So this is how you can see the overview of what you currently have. And you know that when you're using the IR, the internal request, you can choose to replenish your med stock. You can choose to replenish your IPC log stock. You can also choose to create an order for one of your clients. And so to see the clients you have in your Unifield database, you would come to the top and change the view to partner locations. And it's already expanded. And now you see under your customers or clients, you have Cox coordination, kit replenishment, and staff health. And these are the locations that appear when you are creating an IR. You can choose the final destination as the Cox coordination client or staff health. And we haven't discussed kit replenishment. That will be in a future lesson. Additionally, if it's a replenishment order, On the IR, you can choose for the final destination to be the Cox Central Warehouse, med stock, or you can choose for it to replenish the IPC log stock. Now, if you're in the Ukia database, you would see the med stock, and then you would also see your ePrep log, your log, and your Watson stock. So each database, the location structure shows you exactly how your database is already configured, what clients exist, and what stock locations exist. So now the question is, what happens if you need to create a new stock location? So let's take the example that we want to create a medical ePrep stock location in coordination. And creating a new stock location will allow us to manage that stock separately so that we can see those items separately in Unifield and they won't be combined with the regular med stock. That means we can replenish that stock separately. We can source IRs and field orders to take items out of that stock separately. Any functionality we need. So to create a new stock location, I will go back to the home page of Unifield and I will go to Supply Configuration. And then on the left-hand side, you want to come down to Warehouse Configuration. And finally, you go to Regular Warehouse Management. And you'll see a choice to create a new stock location or to remove a stock location. We're going to start with focusing on creating a new stock location. So in our example, we want to create an ePrep med stock. So we look at the option, location usage. Is this a stock, a consumption unit, or ePrep? In this scenario, it's emergency prep, so it's ePrep. And then we want to give it a name. And let's say ePrep med stock. Now we want to use all capital letters because that's consistent with the naming of the other stock locations, and it also prints better on reports and has a better look to it. So once you've given it the name, all you have to do is click confirm and you've created your new stock location. So if I was to go back to my warehouse structure and expand all, I now see I still have my med stock, my IPC log stock, and now my ePrep med stock is also available. So that means it has now been configured and it is available for use, whether we need to create a replenishment order or we need to put items in that stock location. It's available in the warehouse. So for example, if I was to go to the warehouse and to the inventory level, this is where, as you already know, you can see your logs, your different stock levels. So if I type in ePrep, now it says ePrep med is an option and I can look there, and currently I have no items here because I just created the stock location. So that is how you create a stock location to help you manage your different stocks. Now this decision should be based on feedback from the supply co, the medical team, etc. And the stock location should be validated based on the strategy of the mission. And then once you have the validation, you will be informed that please create this location in Unifield, and then you will use the technique I just showed. Okay, so let's see, where else does this stock location appear? If I go back to the home page, let's say now it's time to place an order and you need to replenish your medical stock, ePrep. You could go to internal request, and this is the same process you use for replenishing any of your stock locations. And now, if you were to look at the different location requesters, you would see that here you have the choice for ePrep Med. So if I was to select that, that would mean that anything I order on this internal request the final destination would be the ePrep Med stock, and it would replenish that. And then in the future, after replenishment, you could then create orders to source items from ePrep Med as needed. So this is how the first step is. You have to create the stock location in Unifield, and then it becomes available to use on the IR or in the inventory level when you want to look at your inventory levels, etc. Okay, so now let's go back to the home page and let's create one more stock location. So let's say supply configuration, and let's say we had the validation that we now want to have a Watson stock created in coordination. So you would come to create a new stock location, and this time is a regular stock location. And this information would come from the supply code to let you know, is this a regular stock or is it an ePrep? And so now we would say Watson stock. And you want to make sure that you type the name correctly the first time, because once you save and confirm the name, it is not possible to edit the name. You have to deactivate the location and create a new one to correct any misspellings. So you really want to pay attention to the name you've created and make sure that it's spelled correctly. So I have stock, Watson stock, and then confirm. And Unifield takes me automatically to my location structure page so that I can have an overview of what I've just created. And so now I see it's added an additional stock, Watson stock. So I have ePrep Med, Watson stock, and IPC log stock that was already created. Now again, remember these three stock locations are the intermediate stocks, or otherwise known as configurable locations. That means they are specific, like I said, only to Bangladesh, and they're customizable. They're not going to appear in any other missions or any other projects. So like this location is only for coordination Bangladesh, and UKIA will not be affected. And if UKIA creates stock locations, it'll be only for UKIA database and not for coordination database. Okay. So now let's say that we want to create a new client in Unifield. Let's say with the current coronavirus, we want to have a client that tracks all the activities all the items we purchase and the consumption for any response we do to coronavirus. So if we went to partner locations, we would see that currently our only clients are COX coordination, staff health, and kit replenishment. So to create a new client, again, you go to supply configuration, warehouse configuration, regular warehouse management. And you start again, create new stock location. And this time, instead of stock, you will choose consumption unit. And it's going to create a new choice. It's going to say, is this internal or external? And for the Bangladesh context, you will always choose external. That means that this client does not use Unifield. We're going to take items that we order in Unifield, either we purchase them and deliver them directly, or we take them from stock and we deliver directly. But the client we are delivering to is external. They are not using Unifield. So we give them external, and we will say COVID, let's say Corona. Intervention. Once I've spelled it, all capital letters, I confirm it. And now again, it takes me back to my overview automatically so that I can confirm that it was created properly. I go to partner locations and I click expand all. And now I can see I have a new coronavirus intervention client that I can use when I'm placing orders. So just to see how that would look, if I went back to my home page, and if I wanted to now create an IR, I now have the option to choose the coronavirus intervention as on the IR, and this will allow me to encode and purchase items or to source items to stock that will track it based on this activity to this client, and allows us to follow the consumption and the procurement for this client. Of course, if you don't type it in, you can look at the looking glass, and it will show up here on your list of all locations as well as a customer location consumption unit. So that is how you can create new clients and new stock locations in your database, depending on to help meet the needs of your activities and how you want to manage your data. All right, so let's say that at some time in the future, the coronavirus intervention is over, it's no longer needed because the coronavirus is no longer an issue. So what do we do? If you want to deactivate a client location, an external consumption unit, then you simply go back to supply configuration, back to warehouse configuration, and back to regular warehouse management. And now you have a different choice. You choose remove a stock location. And here it's going to ask you to choose the location you want to remove. And it's only going to allow you your clients and your stocks. And the reason you would want to, once you deactivate or remove a location, it's no longer available for you to use on the IR or to manage your stock in that. So once you do this, it prevents the choice will not appear and allow you to accidentally encode another items to these locations. So let's say the emergency is over and we want to deactivate the coronavirus intervention client because we don't need to create new orders for it anymore. So I would choose this. And then you have the button here that allows you to inactivate this location. And that's it. That's all it takes. And you'll see now, if I go to partners, it's no longer available. And if I went to create an IR, then this would no longer allow me to create new orders to this location. Now this information should also come from the supply co saying, validating that we no longer need a location, whether it's stock or a client, and that it's okay to deactivate the location. Additionally, if you have documents that are open, like if you have a purchase order, an IR, or incoming shipment related to the stock location or to the external consumption unit, it will not allow you to deactivate unless you have closed all open transactions for this location. And if it's a stock location, you would need to remove all items from that stock location before you can deactivate it. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right. Let's say that you deactivated the coronavirus intervention, and then you realized you had one more transaction you needed to encode on it. Perhaps you forgot to encode something before you deactivated it, or there was one more additional activity you received. If you need to, it is possible to reactivate a location that was already created. So again, you would come to supply configuration, warehouse configuration, and regular warehouse management. So it's always the same place for creating, deactivating stock locations and consumption units. And here you would come back to create a new stock location. And we know, in this example, we want to reactivate the coronavirus consumption unit. So we go to consumption unit, location type. It's always external consumption unit. And here we need to type in exactly the location we want to reactivate. And you get this message. And it says an existing but inactive location already exists with the same parameters. Please change the name of the new location or reactivate the existing location by clicking on the reactivate button. And you say okay. And you have the choice to confirm or reactivate. And we know we want to reactivate this location in this example. So we would simply click reactivate. Now just to show you, if I go back to my partner locations, I can see that it has reappeared. So once you create a stock location or a client location in Unifield, it is not possible to delete it. You can activate it, deactivate it, but it's not possible to permanently remove it. So it'll always be available for reactivation. And the reason we don't delete it is because even though you may deactivate the location, you may not need it for future use, it's always available to allow you to extract the data that was encoded for that location for historical purposes. So that is one reason that we keep this location active or in the database, and we don't actually delete them. We only activate or deactivate based on whether you still need to make transactions encoded to these locations. Okay, so now we've demonstrated how to create a stock location and how to create an external consumption unit. And then we've also demonstrated how to deactivate the stock locations and external consumption units. So just remember that before you create these locations, you should get the validation from the supply co, and that would say, please create a stock location with this name, please create an external consumption unit or a client with this name. And then this is simply to review. You would come to supply configuration, warehouse configuration, regular warehouse management, and then you make the choice, create new stock location or remove a stock location. Okay, so to conclude on today's lesson, the primary objectives were to demonstrate the functionality of creating a new stock location and creating a new client, and also how to deactivate or reactivate those locations. You can also find more information about these tasks in the user manuals. And of course, this video is meant to be an easy reference for you. And if you have additional questions or would like more support on this task, you're always encouraged to email me, and we can discuss via email or by video conference if we need to. So please let me know any questions or feedback you have, and otherwise, thanks for watching. Bye.